So we're going to work some actual problems from the first homework that we did, the 2.2b that kept getting extended. You do not need graphing capabilities for this, regardless of what it said. You don't need it. The reason it did that is because it was the first thing we were learning, and they assume that our professors are going to have us buy these expensive graphing calculators. I did buy one. I'm still not going to use it for that, but I have it just in case. Don't go buy it. It's basically useless. If you really want it, sure. If you're going to have more math classes that are even harder than this one, sure. You don't need it otherwise. If you're just in this for this one class and it's just because you're a business major, yay, don't go buy it. You don't need it. And if you really do, I'm probably more than happy to let you borrow it in class. So, we're going to go to actual problems that it gave me in my homework originally, and hopefully these are similar to what you had. Okay? Let me zoom out of it so that I can actually see everything. Okay. So, it gave me this fun question. This was like the first thing it gave me on the certify. I didn't know what the heck this meant. I totally faked it through this the first time. Which is probably what everybody did, honestly. Okay, but I'm going to show you how to solve it, just like we've been doing, and that's awesome. It should be just like I just said in the basics video. So we're going to solve it. Should be easy. Alright, so our problem says f of x, and I will not write that for all of them, but I will write it for a couple. F of x is equal to 4x squared minus x plus 4 at the point of 464. Okay? Remember what I said in the basics video. When it asks for the slope, it's asking for a derivative. So we find our derivative first. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 minus 1 is 1. So that means our x would still stay, but we don't need an exponent. This has an understood 1 here and here. So 1 times negative 1 is just negative 1. 1 minus 1 is 0, so our x drops off. This 4 would drop off because the derivative is a 0. So we now plug in this point right here, this 4, into this right here. This y value that they're giving you is a trap. You don't need it. This is unimportant. Okay? So you plug in your x value, 8 times 4 minus 1. 8 times 4 is 32, minus 1, 31. And that is, in fact, what it said was correct. That's all it's wanting you to do. It makes it seem like it's much more difficult. It tells you to round to the nearest hundredth. You don't even need to do that. I think it just says that to trip you up so that you get confused, which is kind of unfair. Okay. I got this next one wrong, and it's a word one, and the word ones were kind of difficult for me to grasp at the time because of the way they were worded. So we're going to go over it anyway. So it says f of x is the total cost of manufacturing x trucks. Which of the following does the slope f prime of x represent? Well, it's not going to be the total revenue because we're not even talking about revenue in this case. We're only talking about cost. And if anything, it would be the marginal cost, which we had not even learned about yet. Granted, we hadn't learned about a lot of this yet, so there's that fact. This, again, goes back to those limits. It's the correct answer was this additional cost for increasing production by 1 truck when X trucks are being produced. It goes back to those limits that still don't really make sense to me, but that's your answer. It's not the rate of change in this case, because we'll just have it explained. So let's see. it would just be the rate of change in the cost, but it wouldn't be the rate of change in the cost of increasing production by 1. That's the part that tripped me up because I did not continue reading. Okay, that one's pretty stupid. This one goes back to what I said in the basics video. When you have it already in this mx plus b format, your slope is just right here. And if you actually tried to plug this in like we did with the derivative, you would get the wrong answer. If it's already in this format, you do not need to plug this in. It's just to trip you up. So the answer would have just been 4, which is what it was. Okay, so it says to consider this function, and it gives you the function. And then it says to interpret the meaning of f of -9. So, in this case, it's not going to be any of these that say slope because the derivative is the slope. There's no prime here, which means it's none of the slope answers, and you could have immediately eliminated every single one of those. So it has to be the value of the function evaluated at the point of x equals -9 would be 113. Okay, now this one is the one where you would be looking for a slope. So that automatically is going to eliminate this one and this one. So then, in this case, I'm going to open the tutor just to explain this a little better. So it says the function f prime is called the derivative of f. It can be interpreted 3 ways for a point A where f prime of A exists. So the slope of the curve f of x at x equals A, the slope of the tangent line at x equals A, or the instantaneous rate of change at x equals A. And since only one of those options was available, it's the slope of the tangent line. Most times it's going to be the slope of the tangent line if it gives you something specific like that. Okay? Again, in this case, you don't even have to work this problem at the top. It just asks you what the meaning of this is, and it would just be the height of the function. It wouldn't be rate of change or slope because, again, there's no prime symbol there. This one right here, we have our prime symbol, so that means we have to look at our wordings again. So it's not going to be the height of the function because we just said that f of 4 is the height of the function. And we said it's not going to be secant line because that's just not, it's just not usually going to be your choice. And the average rate of change from x equals -4 to x equals 4, like I said in one of the videos for 3.2, since I'm doing these a little backwards, it's usually not going to be that big of a change when it's asking for rate of change kind of things, typically. So then that leaves us with the slope of the curve at this point is the number they gave us. Okay. This was one that she kind of worked in class, at least for the 4 o'clock class. And this is, suppose f of x represents the total number of townspeople that have a cold, and x is the number of days since the first case. And then it gives us the equation f of 40 equals 800 and wants us to interpret what that means. So our options were after 40 days, 800 townspeople have a cold, which is the correct answer. But I'm going to explain why the others aren't correct. 800 is the total change between the first day and 40 days later. Remember, I said it's never going to be that big of a jump. 800 is the average change in the number of townspeople. No, because there's no prime, there's no anything else. It's not going to be that. Again, 800 is the rate of change in townspeople. It's not going to be that because rate of change would not just be f of a number. It would be f prime or something of that nature. All right. Now this one has our prime. F prime of 40 equals 9. So it's not going to be total change between the first day and 40 days later. Too far apart. After 40 days, 9 townspeople have a cold. Doesn't even make sense. Because because that would be total, and total would not be F prime. And then 9 is the average change in the number of townspeople who have a cold between the first day and 40 days later. Again, too far apart. That would be saying that it only changed an average of 9 between those, and that doesn't really work. If it was, say, in this case, maybe 38 and 40 and 9 people were the average change, then sure, but it's not. First day and 40 days is too far apart. So 9 is the rate of change in townspeople who have a cold after 40 days. That's between every day. So every day, approximately 9 people have gained a cold, basically. All right. These LN ones were super fun because we didn't learn this in class. So I'm going to make an entirely separate video for LN because this was a whole bunch of nonsense. So I'll be back with that one in just a minute.